Well, she has been in Congress for less than a week, and already freshman Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez seems to be stealing some of the spotlight from Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi. She issued her own response last night to President Trump's speech with a call to abolish ICE. Watch.
The president should not be asking for more money to an agency that has systematically violated human rights. The president should be really defending why we are funding such an agency at all. Because right now, what we are seeing is death. Right now, what we are seeing is the violation of human rights. This is systematic, it is wrong, and it is anti-American.
Here now, Charlie Hurd, opinion editor at The Washington Times and a Fox News contributor, and David Brown, former senior advisor to Senator Patty Murray and a Democratic strategist. David Brown, let me start with you. According to our information, she just voted as part of the last funding measure to support ICE. You know, she certainly seems to be against this horrible, inhumane institution, but she supported the payment to ICE.
Hey, Martha, good evening. So I watched her remarks in their entirety last night, and what I heard her saying was that she wanted us to be focusing on ICE and on the role that ICE had in the death of the child who was in custody on Christmas Day, and she was expressing a moral outrage that anyone in U.S. custody at the border would be in jeopardy of dying. She also said that, and I think this is appropriate for a congresswoman to say, that we should be exercising oversight and holding any federal agency to account. So I'm not sure I would read her comments the way perhaps you have. But there's a broader point here too, which is, again, we find ourselves, it's a bit of a broken record, we find ourselves as a country debating immigration. There's a right way to do that, there's a wrong way to do that. The right way to do that is to open the government and allow for Democrats and Republicans to come to the table and actually create a space where we can have a real debate and allow for compromise and find a way forward. The wrong way to do that is unfortunately where we are right now, and that is at this impasse with the president holding federal employees and their families hostage.
All right. With regard to her, piping up last night, she's definitely very vocal, which she has every right to be. Whoopi Goldberg didn't think it was such a great idea, though. Here she is on that.
There are a whole bunch of people in the Democratic Party who have been busting their to make sure that women get what they need, people get what they need, children get what they need. So you just got in there, and I know you got lots of good ideas, but I would encourage you to sit still for a minute and learn the job.
Charlie?
Welcome to the 2020 campaign cycle, and I think we're going to be seeing this for the next 2 years. And, the whole reason that Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer went out last night to deliver their remarks is because they're desperate to not only counter President Trump, but to give a sort of reasonable response for their party. And, of course, that gets completely undermined when you have somebody far more exciting and far more youthful and says quite frankly, crazy things like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez out there talking about how un-American the ICE agents are. This is like really super fringe stuff that even Democrats don't agree with. But honestly, the biggest problem I think remains that not necessarily Cortez's statements, although all of that about ICE and about sanctuary cities really does undercut any reasonable argument that Democrats might make. But if you just listen to what Nancy Pelosi said, the idea that she says that the wall is immoral and that the entire thing is a manufactured crisis by the president, those are pretty outlandish things too. And so I don't know which is harder to which of those Democratic talking points is the hardest for them to defend against.
Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer and Alexandria Ocasio have called for the government to be reopened. They think that this whole thing, we need to move on from all this. At one point, Ocasio-Cortez said that she thought that members of Congress should forego their salaries if other people aren't getting paid. And David, we called her office to see if she's done that. She's been asked several times. She said, "I got to go," when she was asked about it. Do you know whether or not she has volunteered to forego her own salary?
I don't, but look, I'm always a fan of holding Congress accountable and actually functioning. I was serving as an aide in 2013 when the Republicans shut down the government to pick a fight with President Obama, and I was furloughed along with hundreds of thousands of other federal employees. And look, the reality is this, for these people and their families, this is not a game. There's a real cost to folks. It's about whether they can make their mortgage, whether they can pay for gas or food. I mean, I was reading stories this weekend. Most Americans don't have savings. And so for a lot of these people, this political game and you know, inside the Beltway bluster with the president and back and forth with Mitch McConnell on the floor of the Senate, it has real meaningful consequences for people back home. And that's what, to me, that's really the heartbreaking piece of this.
Well, they've had a long time to work it out, and they always seem to not be able to do anything until they get to this point, which I think most people who run any kind of business thinks is reprehensible and ridiculous, but that's where we are. I got to leave it there, guys. Thank you very much. We'll have you back in. David Brown, Charlie Hurt, always good to see you.